The Archangel Michael paced back and forth in front of Aziraphale's desk, radiating an air of authority. The Metatron has informed me that you've been making frequent visits to the bookshop, Aziraphale, she declared, her tone edged with accusation. Aziraphale couldn't help but shrink back slightly in response. His fingers danced nervously upon the desk's surface, betraying his unease as he replied, his voice quivering just slightly. Well, naturally, he glanced around the room cautiously, by the divine blessing of the Metatron, indeed. It is absolutely imperative that we maintain a vigilant watch over Muriel, especially given her recent arrival on Earth. As the Supreme Archangel of Heaven, one must ensure that all our stations are impeccably prepared for the impending events, wouldn't you agree? Michael fixed her gaze on Aziraphale, clearly assessing the depths of his sincerity. Of course, she conceded, resuming her measured pacing, but I've noticed that you've missed my last few training sessions. As you say, it is essential that we are prepared for the events to come. Aziraphale nodded eagerly, swiftly pressing a hand against his chest to quell a faint vibration rising from his breast pocket. Oh, I understand completely, Michael, he responded with feigned innocence. I'm afraid that I am not underwhelmed with preparatory works in this office, which you understand, must be reviewed with a keen eye. And, especially considering Muriel's proximity to the principal location, one must be vigilant. Michael's attention was momentarily diverted to Aziraphale's pocket. Her raised eyebrow accenting her suspicion. Did your pocket just vibrate? Aziraphale hastily withdrew his hand, chuckling sheepishly. Oh, that. He deflected, just my pen slipping. Steering the conversation away from his mysterious pocket disturbance, he continued, I do believe that the Metatron themselves has graced the bookshop with occasional visits. It underscores the paramount importance of fortifying the security of our humble outpost, doesn't it? Michael abruptly halted her pacing, seemingly caught off guard by Aziraphale's knowledge of the Metatron's inspections. She shifted a piercing gaze towards him. Have you seen anything of the demon Crowley? Her tone carrying an obvious air of insinuation. Aziraphale feigned innocence, his expression one of wide-eyed surprise. Crowley? He inquired. I must admit, I've not received a whisper from him. I've made only the occasional, exceedingly brief, visit to the bookshop, merely to provide our dear Muriel with some assistance regarding blessings, you understand. Anticipating that his response would match perfectly with the Metatron's own reports, he met Michael's gaze with an air of triumph. Michael regarded him skeptically, but choosing not to press the matter further conceded, right. Well then, pausing briefly, her eyebrows still arched in doubt, I expect to see you at the next training session. Aziraphale nodded eagerly. Certainly, he responded, his voice filled with feigned sincerity, unless something of paramount importance descends from on high, I shall be there without a smidgen of uncertainty. Michael offered a final guarded nod, then departed as abruptly as her arrival. Aziraphale let out a sigh of relief once she was gone, his head falling into his hands on the desk. He reached into his pocket and clicked the pen to finally silence the vibrating device. Opening a celestial channel to Muriel in the bookshop, he spoke in hushed tones, his voice fraught with tension. That was rather a near miss, he admitted. Michael paid a visit just now, and I am not so sure this pen trick was such a good idea. The strain of the impending doom, and the ceaseless frenetic activity in heaven were taking their toll on Aziraphale. His once stoic countenance now marred by evident worry and tension. I'm sorry, Aziraphale, Muriel declared, but I had to report back. Noticing that the usual brightness in Muriel seemed to have dulled, Aziraphale fixed a searching gaze on her. How are things progressing your end? He inquired, his voice laced with genuine concern. Muriel seemed to be weighing her response before finally settling on a course. We've completed the plans for the museum, and everything is set for tomorrow evening. I've input your details into their system's work schedule, so you'll be expected if anyone checks. And the passes, uniforms, and maps are all arranged for you to collect. Aziraphale nodded, a glimmer of relief crossing his weary features. That's absolutely splendid news, my dear. I've made my arrangements to be absent. Now, do tell me, what seems to be troubling you? Muriel hesitated, her tone measured. Crowley mentioned that Furfur has managed to decipher the scroll, Aziraphale. They now know everything we do. Aziraphale's expression turned somber, and he nodded knowingly. They do seem to be a good number of days behind our current position, but I understand your concern. Muriel continued, her voice filled with worry. Yes, but it does seem that Crowley has spent a lot of his time down in hell with the demons. He does have to keep up appearances, we know that, assured Aziraphale. Muriel bit her lip, hesitating. But he has been very, demonic himself lately. Muriel confessed, just the other day, when Maggie offered him a custard cream, he threw the packet out of the window and nearly tore poor Maggie's head off. Aziraphale subtly pressed his fingers to his lips to stifle a smile that threatened to betray their shared secret. His mind danced back to the memories concomitant to the packet of custard creams he kept tucked away in his desk drawer. Other than an occasional delightful treat, the biscuit served an auspicious additional purpose. On the extremely rare occasion that the demon failed to grasp the subtle social cues that he had overstayed his welcome, displaying the social acumen of a zealous drama student ignorant of the flashing red stage lights whilst passionately monologuing into Urik's bleak sockets and turning obliviousness into an art form, the packet played a vital role. Offering the biscuits as a gesture of hospitality would prompt the demon into a silent glare, fixated on the closed drawer where the packet was promptly returned. It was as if his glower had the power of articulation, challenging the treats to reveal themselves. Assured that they would remain in their drawer-bound exile, the demon would break free from his trance, his cool demeanor intact but his departure swift. As the peculiar yet predictable ritual concluded, Aziraphale would find himself contemplating whether it was a waste to use the biscuits in such a manner. After enduring Crowley's intense stare, the atoms within the golden center of the baked goods would get hot under the metaphorical collar and convulse so fervently that they transformed into scrambled egg biscuits, a taste palatable only to the least discerning donkey. Even the more economical version metamorphosed into churned butter biscuits with similar appetizing appeal. Furrowing his brow in a display of feigned concern, he encouraged Muriel to share more. Oh dear, and what else has he done? Muriel leaned in even closer, her voice barely a whisper. He even suggested, well, permanently dealing with the museum guards, if you know what I mean. This revelation promptly wiped away the amusement that danced in his eyes. With a determined resolve, Aziraphale mustered a forced smile. I dare say, my dear, he offered, his words carrying a hint of reassurance. He must have intended that as a jest. Beneath the desk's surface his fingers betrayed his unease, their subtle intertwining a testament to his discomfort at his friend's uncharacteristic remark. Shifting his attention, he discreetly regained his composure and attempted to steer the conversation elsewhere. Now, what news have you of the others? Muriel scrunched her nose in contemplation before confessing, they're scared of him at the moment as well. He's been different, Aziraphale. Very dark. He sits in the corner of the bookshop away from us and hardly says anything, like he's only there to observe us. But, when he does speak, his comments have been, well, questionable. I see, Aziraphale nodded, trying to hide his surprise at the transformation of his dear friend. I did intend to inquire about Nina and Maggie, but do accept my gratitude for imparting that information. Maggie and Nina are fine, thank you. Muriel continued, her worry intensifying. But how do we know Crowley isn't just gathering intelligence for Furfur? Hell could exploit this situation to its advantage and could be preparing legions to battle for Earth when the Second Coming arrives, and possibly even be looking to overthrow heaven themselves. Although this idea had insinuated itself into his mind when they acquired the scrolls, Aziraphale hadn't given it full consideration since that meeting. Although troubling, confronting such unsettling theories also meant conceding the possibility of their failure, something he was loath to do at this time. Pushing aside the worrying thoughts, he looked at Muriel earnestly. I understand Crowley quite well, my dear, he assured her. What has he shared about Furfur? Muriel checked her mental list of information. He mentioned that they know about Indus, they figured out that it was Raphael who stopped it last time. They also worked out, well, Crowley said he told them, that the scroll was about a previous attempt to bring about the second coming, and they are aware of the existence of an artifact that can stop it. However, they don't know what the artifact or key might be, or where to find it. Crowley believes they suspect he knows more. Muriel's words ignited a flicker of faith in Aziraphale's soul. He couldn't help but acknowledge the creeping sense of coldness that had permeated their interactions since he had assumed his new celestial appointment. Crowley had undoubtedly been lurking in the shadows recently, almost like a safety net, and Aziraphale couldn't deny that it had given even himself cause for concern. However, he also knew that Crowley possessed a sharp mind and a profound grasp of heaven and hell's intricacies. If Crowley believed that demons were observing their every move, then Aziraphale trusted that his dear friend would play his infernal role to perfection. He desperately hoped that Crowley's darker change in demeanor was merely part of his usual act, a facade designed to deceive any prying eyes. But above all, he contemplated that what mattered most at this juncture was the safety of Nina and Maggie. Aziraphale knew that they needed to be kept far away from the unfolding events, shielded from prying demonic scrutiny. Recognizing the potential for perilous entanglements, he was aware that they could inadvertently become perceived as vulnerabilities to be used as leverage. Muriel noticed a spark of hope flicker in Aziraphale's eyes, and a faint smile tugging at his lips as he replied. It wouldn't surprise me if the demons are keeping a close eye on us, but I doubt they will be able to decipher the references to the key. His voice adopted a more commanding tone as he continued, however, it's absolutely imperative that you make sure Nina and Maggie steer clear of the bookshop from now on, you understand. He emphasized the importance of his request with a piercing stare and a meaningful pause before his countenance softened, and added, now, is there anything else that requires our attention? Muriel nodded in agreement, though she couldn't quite fathom why Aziraphale seemed to find hope in her assessment of Crowley. However, his sincerity provided her with a sense of reassurance. She hesitated before proceeding, her tone filled with apprehension. Well, the Metatron has visited again, she revealed. I showed them the train timetables that you showed me and said how you've been instructing me to get to the blessings, just like we talked about. They don't seem to suspect anything. In fact, they seem very, very pleased. Aziraphale took in this information and offered a reassuring smile. Well, that's rather splendid, Muriel. You're doing an exceptional job. He paused for a moment, then continued, with all your preparations meticulously arranged, I believe we shall carry on with our museum plans as intended tomorrow. Concluding the exchange with a handful of pleasantries, he closed the celestial channel, surrounding himself in the calming ethereal space as he took slow, deliberate breaths to prepare himself for the daunting task that lay ahead.